Something as basic as turning polyester back into polyester is actually an innovation, which is a bit crazy. Polyester is a good example of what we're talking about when we're talking about circularity within fashion. So right now, if you buy a recycled polyester product, if you go in and you buy a fleece or a recycled polyester jacket, chances are, because about 99% of all polyester on the market that's recycled comes from plastic water bottles. So you'll be buying a recycled polyester that came from a plastic water bottle. That in itself is, of course, a great thing. We know we have a lot of plastic on this planet. But the problem is that you're still just extending the life. You're not actually properly recycling something, because you take a plastic water bottle, you shred it, you melt it down, you extrude it, you create polyester. You have that polyester, you use it, but then it's waste. There's nothing to do with the polyester. So you're not actually closing the loop. You're not actually recycling something in the long run. You're extending its life, which is good, but at the end of the day, it's still waste. And so when we're talking about circularity in the industry, especially for us at Stella, what we're really focused on is just textile to textile recycling. Something that sounds so basic, but actually doesn't exist for most materials. The only material that we use now that we have that with is nylon. There is a nylon company called Econil that is able to recycle any and all nylon waste back into nylon. But it's few and far between. This is changing. We're not the only brand that's interested in this. It's a big focus for the industry to address this issue. So for us, though, speaking outside of that, thinking about the materials that we use now and why it's important that we find sustainable alternatives to them, I thought I would just focus on two of the key materials that we use at Stella McCartney, cotton and viscose. So starting with cotton, I mean, this may sound very basic to everyone, but I think that we kind of don't appreciate organic cotton versus conventional cotton typically. Like with food, organic cotton is very different than conventional cotton. Conventional cotton, as far as toxicity goes, is one of the more toxic crops in the world. Conventional cotton occupies 2.6 or 2.4% of the world's agricultural land. So out of everything grown, around 2.4% of it is cotton. But it's using 10% of all agricultural chemicals and 25% of all insecticides. So if you think about that ratio, it's basically you're putting a ton of chemicals on this crop, which affects groundwater. It has a huge footprint when it comes to pollution, and it's also extremely toxic for the people growing it. Organic cotton is grown without those chemicals. It's grown without synthetic fertilizers, without synthetic pesticides or insecticides. So it's one of the materials that, when it comes to sustainability, that's been on the market the longest, but it does make a massive difference genuinely to use organic cotton compared to conventional cotton. But the thing that I think is even more interesting than that for us is we're looking more and more at going beyond just the certification of organic cotton. So like I said at the beginning, right now, if things continue as they are, we only have about 60 years of soil left on the planet because of the way we've been treating it. So one of the things that we're looking at a lot internally right now is around regenerative agriculture. And this is just really trying to rethink what agriculture is. It's actually going back towards kind of older systems that we used to have, we used to use more. But right now, agriculture is responsible for 20% of greenhouse gases. But it's also the largest store of carbon globally, terrestrially. So it stores the most carbon, but it's also releasing an awful lot of carbon. It's releasing this amount of greenhouse gas because of the way we're treating soil, because of the pesticides we're putting on it, because we're not letting it act as a sponge in the way it wants to naturally.